Hello folks, this is Miguel from the Embargo Man channel, and the topic I'm talking about when I see a bunch of YouTube videos about Hong Kong, right? So these, and even videos on everywhere, not just in the news, but yeah, I mean like Tony Morano and Random Yoko are putting news about Hong Kong or spreading something why the people are protesting in Hong Kong against the Chinese government. Well, first of all, let me tell you this, because I seen one of these videos, and then let me tell you the story about Hong Kong, right? Hong Kong was a part of China, or it is part of China right now, but back then when the British, we are back in the Qing dynasty, when the British wanted to trade with opium, and then they just went to China and they got Hong Kong. Hong Kong has become a British territory for 100 years, from 1897 to 1997. I've seen this when Hong Kong was returned to China, right? But then out of suddenly the history about this, that like I'm saying, why are these videos about Hong Kong is spreading like wildfire? Like the news of Hong Kong is spreading like wildfire. The thing is that the Pope was planning to go to Japan, right? The Pope was planning to go to Japan this November, like next month. This is recorded in October. You watch in November, and probably if the Pope cancels his trip to Japan, because let me tell you what, I mean, back then when one of the popes tried to, finish communism, tear down communism, or to say what communism is over, it was Pope John Paul II, right? But Pope John Paul II, but let me just go in before I even mention Pope John Paul II, let me tell you what. Remember, like Hong Kong right now is playing the role of Little Red Riding Hood, but China is the wolf. Why China is the wolf, right? Because, the thing about Hong Kong is spreading like wildfire, and the Pope is still deciding to go to Japan. You might just plan to go to the wolf's mouth. This is now Beijing. But what it is that I think these news about this Hong Kong wildfire spreading, it is so sad to see that one country, or like saying that being split apart. First of all, it was in rule of an empire. The Chinese empire is really, really old, and then it became the Republic of China. But then after that, like in 1949, the people from there, they said the actual government of China, they settled in Taiwan, right? So, and talking about the wolf's mouth, it's just in Beijing now. So, back in the days when the Soviet Union was formed, the first pope that went to the Soviet Union, the wolf's mouth back then was in Moscow, in Russia, Moscow, Russia, the Soviet Union, trying to end the Soviet Union. So Pope John Paul II went to Russia, the Soviet Union back then, and then he was trying to say to end communism, planning to talk with Mikhail Gorbachev, or back in the day. Ronald Reagan was also involved with this ending about the Soviet Union and unification of Germany. Now let's put the stand in there. Modern days times. Let's hop into things right now, into modern days times. Germany becomes Korea, and the Soviet Union becomes China. So, and even though we all heard about the story about the three little pigs and the big bad wolf. You heard about it, the three little pigs and the big bad wolf, right? So this is a fairy tale. fairy tale that sooner or later, way back in the days, that is gonna come, gonna come true, right? So, talking about the three little pigs and talking about the big bad wolf, and we go into the to the theology of the big bad wolf. Even though that for Random Yoko, thanks for your Hong Kong videos about Hong Kong. This is like the crisis in China now, but the video about Hong Kong. But thank you for one of the videos, Random Yoko, that I mean, there's a video that I'm planning to do on false frames or fake frames by Korean prostitutes in Holland against their Dutch managers, right? So that would be interesting, you know, Korean prostitutes in Holland fake framing their Dutch managers on rape would be an interesting topic, because that would go to the Me Too movement. But now let's focus on what the Pope might plan to cancel his trip to Japan and decided to go to China instead, right? So what happened in this is that, you know, as you know, like Pope John Paul II and Russia, I mean the Soviet Union, you know, how they end up with the Soviet Union has ended up, how the fall of the Soviet Union came. Now it's China's turn, right? This time it's China's turn because of Hong Kong, right? So what it is about the Three Little Pigs story, and you heard about the Three Little Pigs, one of the smartest pig make a house full of concrete or brick, and the wolf can't blow it away. So, and put it in the analogy of the Three Little Pigs, well, the Three Little Pigs is, you know, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau are the Three Little Pigs. The big bad wolf is China, or I mean, communist government in China is the big bad wolf, right? So what happened is that the plan of all this that was going on in Hong Kong, even though they don't want to be part of the communist government in China, but suddenly this would take effect of this Hong Kong noise. So I believe that one thing that could be right, and could be right there, I mean, putting all this, that I mean, that, you know, before the Pope's visit, I mean, or way that, or when Pope John Paul II did visit Russia back then, saying with this, or way before that, you know, it was like, one thing is that that Britain has to deal with the Chinese Empire. The Chinese Empire was very ancient, very old empire. So that's what the Qing Dynasty. Then the China Empire went down. Then they had formed the Republic of China, and then all the people from the Republic of China, what it is, they just went to Taiwan. They all went to Taiwan, right? So you have Taiwan, and you have I mean, probably Taiwan would be the pig building a house made out of bricks. The other two, Macau and Hong Kong, and you know, like, they're the ones that are like, you know, have to face the big bad wolf. So what it is that as Moscow back then was the wolf's mouth back in the day when John Paul II visits the wolf's mouth, now Beijing is the wolf's mouth today. Why Beijing is the wolf's mouth today? Because all of it suddenly about the situation in Hong Kong. So what it is that even the Pope, you know, Pope Francis, back then he got to settle with the commies back in Argentina back in the day when he was a reverend, or he was a missionary in Argentina, even though he come from Italian immigrants. So what he did is the same thing to settle up that they won't stand. The Argentinians don't stand with the Argentine communists. That's what it is. But now, saying that his plans to go to Japan would be in 2020, it would be probably after the Olympics in Tokyo, or probably during the Olympics in Tokyo. Two events going on: Pope's visit to Japan and the Tokyo Olympics is gonna be kind of odd because of Hong Kong, right? Because of Hong Kong, right? But let me tell you, Tony Morano, and I talk about the communist government in China is gonna fall pretty soon, when thanks to your videos and thanks to all the people's videos, thanks to random Yoko's videos about Hong Kong. It's like saying like stuff happening in Venezuela, right? And they say everything's, but then look at the other picture where people are protesting. Same thing what happened in Hong Kong, right? So, for a matter of fact that you look back, and all the way back to Russia, right? To Ronald Reagan being involved with Pope John Paul II going into Wolf's Mouth back then in Moscow. Now Pope Francis will go to Wolf's Mouth, that is Beijing. That is Beijing to fix Hong Kong's problems. That means maybe he just going to two countries. So the decision to go to Japan might be postponed for next year. Well, it is kind of odd to see this. So I'm just saying this, that Pope Francis visits to Japan would be in 2020, or maybe we will see Pope Francis in the Tokyo Olympics after everything in Hong Kong is fixed. So what it is that back then during the Soviet Union, Pope John Paul II went to Moscow, that the Wolf's Mouth back then, but today's Wolf's Mouth is in Beijing. So the thing is, it is so sad to see a country with so many years of history that has been divided by communism, by all these factors, British invasion, and that could include Hong Kong, right? So what it is, thanks for your support on everybody, not just in YouTube, Michael Yun, in Facebook. I'm just saying that I see your videos and you're talking about that. It's cry. Sometimes it makes me sad and makes me cry to see people, Chinese folks in general, not the government, but people in general suffering. Hong Kongers especially, So the thing would be for going to two countries. Maybe Pope Francis might go to two countries, right? First of all, he might just settle to go to China. So it will be talks with with Xi Jinping, and talking about the situations in Hong Kong, and compare to his situation when commies try to take over Argentina, right? So all of this goes into play. The Wolf's Mouth in Beijing, and you have the Three Little Pigs, Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong. So so Macau, Hong Kong, and Taiwan are the Three Little Pigs, and the Big Bad Wolf within the Big Bad Wolf, that is China. So the Wolf's Mouth, in Beijing. So here we go. Then after that, he might go to Taiwan. Francis' trip to China would end up in Taiwan on the same thing, Hong Kong, right? So that would means that all of political sessions and whatever or whatnot that probably the one political system, or we might use to check out maybe Pope Francis might go to Sweden, or he might go to Denmark, or one of these democratic countries that to adapt that democratic political system within China, and then things would be fixed up. It's a fixer upper in some kind of way. That, I mean, this would be, you know, like, what the heck, after Pope Francis go to China, probably he might go to Hong Kong too. You know, China could also include Hong Kong. So that way it was more that they might have some people of Chinese descent living in Sweden, Denmark, or one of these Scandinavian countries, to say one of them would adapt one of these Scandinavian countries' political system integrated within China. So what it means, it would be very odd that the early years of 2020, before the Olympics started, Pope Francis will appear in Sweden or in Denmark or in Norway, or one of these Scandinavian countries, right? So the situation with all of this, even though, yeah, probably Sweden, right? Probably Pope Francis might go to Sweden in the early years of 2020 before he plans to go this trip to Japan. So even though Volvo is a Swedish company dealing with a Chinese company, so the thing with whatever it is, probably for China to adapt the Swedish form of democracy, even though it's gonna be republic, and then like they have all in suddenly deals with Taiwan, and all of suddenly they wanna Taiwan adapts some situation or some control similar to Sweden's offer on their form of democracy, and just to spread it into China. Yeah, it would be very obvious it's gonna happen that way. Why? Because to me, I am getting aware of Hong Kong. Even though I am aware, I say I have love for everybody, even for Chinese folks, right? Even though I'm learning Japanese, but actually the thing is that I have felt this love for Chinese folks because the situation, even Hong Kongers are Chinese folks too, that the situation over there has been so bad that they have protesting and protest on and on and on. All they want, what people want, even in Tiananmen Square, change within their own country, right? Why change within their own country to hopefully gain to become a democracy? Because everybody wants something that have never regret to have. Freedom and democracy would be very successful, and it would just surge the way for a better view of capitalism. Because this is why one of these countries in the Nordic system, like Sweden, Norway, and Sweden, Norway, and Finland, countries like that, Nordic countries have better capitalism and compared to the United States, even though we all share something in the same way. Because I believe that one of these days, that after the cancellation and see the news about why Pope Francis canceled his trip to Japan, or he might plan to cancel his trip to Japan because of Hong Kong, is because out of suddenly, and that we believe that we are God's children, because I know that I was Catholic, and then my leaders saying I would never believe that hearing the news about Pope Francis deciding to go to China instead of Japan is, we all know, is because of Hong Kong. You know, I'm standing. Everybody's standing for Hong Kong. Even Pope Francis is standing for Hong Kong right now because he's hearing and seeing all these videos about Hong Kong. Says, whoa, 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 like hold up a minute, hold up. This is what Pope Francis says. Hold up a minute. Crisis in Hong Kong. Shoot, forget about it. I'm not going to Japan. I'm gonna leave it for next year. I'm going to China. So he's gonna go to China, right? So that's what it is with that. The plan is from the Japan trip for what he's got for November. For November, I mean next month or what it is. If it does happen, if you don't see Pope Francis in Japan and he's in China, that means out of his tour or whatever it is would be Pope Francis will go to China, Taiwan, you know, China that's called also include Hong Kong, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and probably Sweden, and there would be forming this alliance with these people. You know, okay, China becomes a democracy. Hong Kong is settling with everything in between for their future. And they want something like that. They're gonna adapt some rules from Sweden, like the healthcare and all the, you know, kind of like a democracy with social services and stuff, right? So that would be all in between after 2020. You might see the Pope in Tokyo, Japan during the Olympics. The Pope in the Olympics and says, so suddenly we would see what we would see. Probably the Taiwan flag would be the Chinese flag, you know. And after suddenly we'll see Pope Francis in Tokyo, Japan in the Olympics. So he will talk in the Olympics, Pope Francis in the Olympics in Tokyo, Japan, after he went to China, to Taiwan, probably Hong Kong would, people from Hong Kong would compete as China. In out of suddenly they probably compete as China. That also could include Taiwan. Is that whatever it is that we all know, that everybody knows, Random Yoko has done it, Tony Morano has done it, Michael Young has done it, and probably I'm just waiting for Yujiro Taniyama to do something about Hong Kong, right? Because I believe that everybody is up there, even me, that I'm saying that I'm doing this video right now, and because there's other topics and other things to come up in my channel, is because I believe that when we gonna stand for Hong Kong out of something, I believe it is something. You know, keep doing videos, keep doing, even the guy from China Uncensored, he was just doing something. You know, Chris Chappell might just do something related with the Pope in China. And yeah, the China Uncensored guy, I don't subscribe to you, but sometimes I mean, for Chris Chappell, you're gonna be tired, and then you might just go make another channel, everything with Japan related, right? After, you know, the Pope's visit to China and face Hong Kong's problems. So I mean, what it is that you know, and I'm talking about, even though I have to like stop and go with this camera, but I mean, suddenly is that, you know, after all, after 2020, you know, like suddenly you could see the Pope, you know, going to Japan, but suddenly like, yeah, like saying like after the Pope had visited, you know, Sweden too, you know, this is what it is to. I'm just saying to finish this video off, and I'm just saying I have to go. So with the situation right there, I mean, suddenly that I'm saying that if you have seen, if Pope Francis doesn't appear in Japan this November, it's for a reason. If Pope Francis is in China, it's for a reason. I mean, we all gonna stand for Hong Kong, even me. So, even though people watching this, all of everybody, Random Yoko, Tony Morano, all of these people watching this, Chris Chappell, Yujiro Taniyama, please do something about a video based on Hong Kong. Is that you gotta say that it is saddens me that I seen one of the oldest civilizations. Oh, this is just no mere from the one of the oldest civilizations, you know, apart, away, tearing down away from communism and British invasion and stuff. To see is that now the fire has lit up in Hong Kong, right? So, I mean, this is this is the wolf's mouth. Beijing is the wolf's mouth. I mean, so for everybody, please pray for the people in Hong Kong, or in general, for the Chinese people, right? Pray for the Chinese people. Also, that also could include the people in Hong Kong. It is not just a communist government. It is people trying to want something that really want to do. Both democracy, a chance to have freedom in a way, in a form of whatever it is it takes, that it will just adapt some political systematic similar to Sweden, but instead you're gonna have a president instead of a prime minister, you know. Sweden might just be involved, you know. I think that Pope Francis would come to Japan after he visits Sweden. So I mean, in that would be, it is seem that I see a brighter future for that. You know, I mean, for all of this people, I mean, Pope Francis, Michael Young, you're watching this, I'm making this video because, you know, I care about Hong Kong. Pope Francis cares about Hong Kong now, you know. I mean, Pope Francis, I mean, just pray for the Chinese people, even in Washington, there's a people, especially the people of Hong Kong, the Hong Kongers, pray for the Hong Kongers, pray for the people of Hong Kong, the Hong Kong folks that are suffering right now and doing all the protests, right? Other than that, I might just see you guys in the next video. Please write any comments what you think about what if the Pope cancels his trip to Japan in November and decides to go to China. So I mean, that's what it is that the topic is something that I say that I have to do. I'm not getting monetized. I need some subscribers. I need your support. I need your support. Anybody could write me a comment. Anybody could write me a comment. This is about Hong Kong. Could be Random Yoko, could be Tony Morano, Michael Young, or Yujiro Taniyama. He has never wrote something about Hong Kong. Is that what I would say is this. What do you think about if Pope Francis canceled his trip to Japan and decided to go to China to fix Hong Kong's problems? I mean, so what's going on after this? Even Korea, that have some beef with Japan, would finally reunite themselves. Korea is the modern day Germany now. So what it is, Russia is now China, Germany is now Korea. So please subscribe to my channel and write some comments. I am waiting for you for your comments, and see you in the next video. Please stay safe and goodbye. Because next topic would be very interesting and have all other interesting topics in my head. And please don't forget to hit the bell button. please do hit the bell. Goodbye, folks.